The Tunguska Event, the mysterious explosion in Siberia in the summer of 1908. Deep in the remote wilderness of Siberia, the earth shook with a force unlike anything seen in recorded history. Trees were flattened across an area larger than some countries. People living hundreds of kilometers away reported seeing a flash in the sky and feeling a shockwave that knocked them to the ground. Yet when scientists eventually reached the site, they found no crater, no clear evidence of what had caused such destruction. This is the story of the Tunguska Event, one of the greatest mysteries of the modern era. A puzzle that continues to fascinate scientists, explorers, and curious minds more than a century later. The Tunguska Event took place on June 30th, 1908, at around 7 o'clock in the morning. Near the Pokemnaya Tunguska River in Siberia, a massive explosion occurred in the sky. Witnesses described seeing a fireball streaking across the heavens, followed by a series of thunderous blasts. The shockwave from the explosion was so powerful that it knocked people off their feet, shattered windows, and set buildings shaking as if an earthquake had struck. In some areas, the heat was so intense that clothing caught fire. Herds of reindeer were killed instantly, and birds fell from the sky. When the dust settled, the scale of destruction became clear. An estimated 80 million trees were flattened in a radial pattern, all pointing away from the explosion's epicenter. The affected area covered more than 2,000 square kilometers. To put this in perspective, it was as if a city the size of London had been completely leveled in seconds. And yet, there was no impact crater. The ground showed signs of scorching, but no giant hole, no fragments of rock or metal large enough to explain the blast. News of the disaster spread slowly, partly because of how remote the region was. Siberia, in 1908, was sparsely populated, with few roads and little infrastructure. It took years before a scientific expedition reached the site. In 1927, a team led by Leonid Kulik, a Russian mineralogist, arrived to study the area. Kulik was astonished by the flattened forest, but puzzled by the absence of a crater. He proposed that a large meteorite had exploded in the atmosphere before reaching the ground, releasing enormous energy without leaving traditional impact features. This theory became the foundation for most scientific explanations of the Tunguska Event. According to calculations, the explosion released energy equivalent to about 10 to 15 megatons of roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The blast was so intense that it sent shockwaves around the world, detected by barometers as far away as England and the United States. For several nights afterward, skies across Europe and Asia glowed unusually bright, allowing people to read newspapers outdoors at midnight. Scientists believe this was caused by dust and particles thrown high into the atmosphere, scattering sunlight long after the event. Despite these findings, many mysteries remained. If a meteor or comet had exploded in the atmosphere, why was no clear debris ever found? Kulik and later researchers searched for fragments but came up empty-handed. Some small pieces of rock and glassy particles were discovered, but nothing large enough to explain the devastation. This absence fueled alternative theories, some scientific, others more speculative. One possibility is that the object was not a typical rocky meteorite, but a fragile comet composed mostly of ice and dust. Such an object could have disintegrated completely in the atmosphere, leaving little solid material behind. This would explain the lack of a crater and large fragments. However, even this theory raises questions, since some traces of extraterrestrial material should still have been detectable. Over the decades, the Tunguska Event attracted a wide range of explanations. Some suggested that a small asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere and exploded before impact, a phenomenon now known as an airburst. Others proposed that the event was caused by natural gas erupting from beneath the Earth's surface and igniting in the air. More imaginative theories have suggested black holes, antimatter collisions, or even alien spacecraft exploding over Siberia. While such ideas capture the imagination, most scientists remain convinced that the Tunguska Event was caused by a cosmic object, likely a stony asteroid or a fragment of a comet exploding in the atmosphere. Modern studies using computer simulations have supported this, showing how a space rock entering at high speed could release massive energy in an airburst without leaving a crater. The Chelyabinsk meteor in 2013 provided a more recent example on a smaller scale. That meteor exploded over Russia, injuring more than 1,000 people with broken glass and shockwaves, but it left no crater. The similarities between Chelyabinsk and Tunguska suggest that the 1908 event was a much larger version of the same phenomenon. Even with these explanations, the Tunguska event continues to raise important questions. One is about the frequency of such events. If a rock, a few tens of meters across, could cause devastation over 2,000 square kilometers, how often does this happen? Astronomers estimate that Tunguska-sized objects strike Earth once every several hundred years. While rare, the potential damage is so great that scientists take the threat seriously. This is why programs exist to track near-Earth objects, mapping asteroids that could one day pose a danger. The Tunguska event is often cited as a warning of what could happen if we are unprepared. Another question is what the event tells us about human vulnerability. Had the Tunguska explosion occurred over a major city rather than a remote forest, the casualties would have been catastrophic. Millions could have died, and entire urban regions could have been destroyed in an instant. The fact that it happened in Siberia, one of the least populated regions on Earth, was a stroke of extraordinary luck. It serves as a reminder that our planet is not immune to cosmic accidents and that vigilance is necessary to protect against them. The Tunguska event also shows how mysteries can endure even in the age of science. Despite more than a century of study, absolute certainty remains elusive. The absence of a crater and large fragments ensures the debate continues. Each new expedition, satellite image, or computer model adds to the picture, but never quite completes it. For some, this uncertainty is part of the appeal. The Tunguska event remains one of the greatest unsolved natural mysteries, a puzzle where science and imagination meet. Culturally, the event has become a symbol of hidden power from the cosmos. Writers, filmmakers, and artists have used Tunguska as inspiration for stories about alien visitors, secret weapons, and apocalyptic warnings. In this way, it is similar to the Bermuda Triangle or Area 51, real places and events that become larger than life because of their mysteries. Even though science leans toward a natural explanation, the legend of Tunguska, as something beyond our understanding, continues to live on. In the end, the Tunguska event is a story about both destruction and wonder. It shows the immense power of the universe and the fragility of life on Earth. It challenges us to keep searching, to develop better tools for detecting cosmic threats, and to remember that we are part of a larger system we do not fully control. At the same time, it feeds our imagination, reminding us that there are still mysteries that resist simple answers. More than 100 years later, the forest has regrown, covering much of the scar left by the explosion. But the questions remain. What exactly streaked through the Siberian sky that morning in 1908? Why did it leave no crater? And could it happen again? Until we know for certain, the Tunguska event will remain a fascinating riddle at the intersection of science, history, and myth. What do you think happened? Write it in the comments, leave a subscription, and subscribe to the channel.